Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to take a look at how to make these texture pillars and that planet that's over there and that kind of red dwarf that I have on the top. Now before we get started, let me thank my sponsors, which in this case are my Patreons and you, the audience. I have 2 levels of Patreons if you want to help the channel. The $3 one will give you some Discord goodies and more access to myself on the Discord server if you have any more questions. And the other level will allow you to get these videos early. You'll get a thank here in the video like you're seeing right now. And one of the things that I'm going to add to the $7 level of Patreon is file sharing. So I'm going to be adding some of the assets every now and then when applicable. And the reason why I say when applicable is because I'm sometimes use paid assets, and when I do that I cannot just redistribute those because it goes against the license and it's just plain wrong. So whenever I make something that I can share, I will share it. But if you can't do the Patreon, then just leaving a like and leaving a comment goes a long way. It really helps out the channel. Subscribe to the Discord. It's really fun to have you all over there. And you can ask all your questions. If you want, the community can answer them. Follow me on Twitter. And let's start the video. Let's get to the pillars first. So I know some of you freak out because I'm using a paid program. The point of using third-party tools is that the skills are transferable to any program that you're using. So before you click away, remember that what I'm going to show you, and whenever I show you other tools that are paid, you can still apply these techniques to things like Blender or Maya or Cinema 4D, or if you already have your doctorate, maybe you're using Houdini. Let's just get into how this is made. It's actually very simple. I tessellated it so it catches the light a little bit better once I turbo smooth it. So it catches, again, a little bit more light around this rim and it's not completely sharp. But the point of this is to show you the actual UVs of how I would go about unwrapping something like this. If you're new to the concept of unwrapping, that just means that you're pretty much going to squish this into a flat plane in order to get the textures, because as of today, that is the only way that we can get textures into game engines. There's also vertex color painting, but that is something else. The standard way is unwrapping the object, applying the texture, and that's how you move it into the engine. So if I unwrap my object here, so you can see how I unwrap it, you can see that I have very few seams, and by seams I mean the cuts that I do to this box. So imagine this was an oversized Amazon box and you just make cuts here to open it because you're desperate to get your package, and those will be your seams. Now you can see that I left some parts where I did not cut. The cuts are the green part. The reason for that is because if I wanted to do specific variation of my texture that goes across here, if I have a seam, there are ways to overcome this seam that could be a little bit more complex. But if I do have the seam, then my texture may look weird. You may have seen that in some video games. But I want this to not be noticeable. So the side where I'm going to be shooting this object with the camera, I wanted to have no seams, and that's why I decided to get rid of all the seams here, and I only have a seam back here. And actually this object is going to be seen this way, so these seams over here don't matter as much. That is why this object is unwrapped the way that it is. And yes, before we move into the texturing part, your object needs to be unwrapped. Alright, so this program is called Quixel Mixer. Again, another free program that you can download from the Quixel website, link in the description. And pretty fast. So navigation, you scroll to zoom in, you use Alt and your middle mouse to pan, or you just hold Alt and your left click to rotate. If you want a more in-depth tutorial on how to use Mixer, I do have a playlist for beginners where I go step by step into all the things that Mixer has, in case you want to look at that. But for now, we're just going to throw in a texture. So this is my pillar that I imported here. So you can see this is exactly the same pillar that I show you in 3D Studio Max. And for that, I just brought the rusty metal sheet. I'm just going to delete these so I can show you how to do this from scratch. And all you have to do is go into this little square with dots called Add Surface Layer. And that's going to take you over here to your local library. Now, the way you download is you just go to the online tab. And in the case of what we are using, just search for Rust. Click the magnifying glass, and it takes a little bit. All right, so I actually had to go here and press surfaces because it was taking a lot of time searching. And as you can see, we have different types of rusted metals around here. Let me look for the one that I used. I think it was this one right here. It's called Rusty Metal Sheet 2x2. So it should look like this if you want to do exactly what I'm doing. So once you get this, it should be in your local library, and all you have to do is click on it and it will be applied to your object. Now, this is applied in a way that I'm not very comfortable with, because if I go here into placement, you can see that it says box projection. I don't like the box projection very much because it kind of repeats like on every side, which again might be good for what you're trying to do. It's not good for what I'm trying to do. So I'm just going to change box projection to tiling. And as you can see, to be honest, that looks so much better. The texture goes completely across and it creates some nice effects around here instead of that horrible pattern that was creating on every single side. If you want to decrease the size, then you will increase the repetitions, which you can do, and it actually still looks fine if you increase the repetitions. However, if you do increase the repetitions too much, it'll start to show. So I'm actually going to go back to 1, and I'm going to leave it at that. Now, another thing that I'm going to do is uncheck displacement. So you see that something happened over there. So if I have displacement on, you can see that it's trying to displace a surface. I recommend displacement for when you have a completely flat surface. There are some times where you can use it in places like this, but for the sake of this tutorial, I recommend that you just turn it off, and now you have some nice texture going all around. So after that, you can actually change the color. I think this is pretty nice for what we are trying to have. But, and by the way, you can offset your texture if you want to just rotate it around. I'm going to stick with this. This actually looks pretty nice. And you can change your color over here. So if we wanted to make something a little bit less saturated than what we had, kind of like around here, and we apply, that would be nice. All right, so I think we're done with our texturing. If you want, you can play with the color a little bit more. But the other thing that I want to look at is how to export things out of here. So if I go to the export tab, you're going to see that export target, I have library and custom. The thing is though, if I do library, this is going to export it to the Bridge app. It's not going to export it to the one in Unreal Engine 5. So I'm just going to export it out to a specific location right here. I like that it creates a subfolder and you just give it a name. So the name you give it here will be the name of your subfolder, which is very helpful. And the other thing that I like about this is that it exports the model. So that way you have everything in one place. It gives you the option of OBJ or FBX. Highly recommend FBX because we're dealing with Unreal. Over here we have texture presets, which has specular or metalness. This is depending on what kind of workflow you're using. Again, because we're in Unreal, I highly recommend you use the metalness map. And you have the albedo roughness, normal. If you want the displacement, you can get that too. Ambient occlusion, very important, and the metalness. Over here, something that you may miss, because it's right here downstairs, it's the resolution. So make sure you change that because it's defaulted to 256, which is super low. Make sure you change that. I actually changed mine to 4K. There is 8K, although I do not recommend 8K, at least not yet at the moment of recording of this video. I've had some crashes over it, and they always say, again, at the version of Mixer that I have, is that 8K, it's kind of experimental, so it could give you some crashes. but 4K is enough, to be honest. The difference in the engine is not that much with the two textures. So once you do that, you export it out to disk, and it will be in a folder that you can just bring into Unreal. Now, after you've done that, as you can see over here, I have my texture. So with the name that I gave it, I have my albedo, AO, normal map, roughness. We already talked about what these maps are. And all we have to do is create a material. So we're gonna right click, material, and I'm gonna give it a name. And I'm just gonna throw in all my textures in there. So albedo, most of these are very self-explanatory. Albedo always goes in base color. AO goes over here. Normal map goes in the normal map. And this one goes in the roughness. All right, then you just hit apply. And there you have it. I also like to save it. And we have the texture for the pillar. That's how you bring the pillar with the texture over here. Now, I do have another version that I made. So if I go back into content, Megascans, I do have this pillar that I created for the one that the little shorts that you saw that I play sometimes before these. And the reason being is that when I first started making this, I went in ZBrush, and of course this is much bigger, but I'm just going to scale it down. So I went in ZBrush and I did some carving, and this actually helps out giving it more of that silhouette of something that's been there for a long time, that's been, you know, eroding with the environment and all that. Now this is a little bit different. It needs sculpting, and it goes into ZBrush in my case. So if you'd like to see me sculpting one of these, or show you how to sculpt simple environment objects, please let me know in the description below. I'm willing to make that tutorial. I just need to know how many people are interested in that, because this is mainly an Unreal channel. So as you can see over here, I'm actually going to go into the pillars material. I'm going to throw in this material over here, and you can see it looks pretty nice, and the crevices and everything reacts a lot better to the light. Again, this is kind of like the basic form, and this is more of like the intermediate kind of advanced form. And again, let me know if you want me to showcase how to do the sculpting of this pillar. All right, so we finished our pillar. Now let's talk about these two right here. For this one right here, actually right now it has no textures. I forgot that I deleted that texture. If we add whatever material we want, it actually doesn't matter because it's so far in the background. Nothing's gonna change that much. The planet that I have in the shorts that I recorded, it's from Planet Creator. That's another kind of asset that you can buy. All right, so I just want to take a moment and show you the Planet Creator asset. As you can see, the planet in the background is not being shown much, so you can get by with what I just showed you. But if you want to create cool planets in your scene, you might want to use Planet Creator. I think it's a really cool asset. This is a paid asset, of course, and it's like one click getting planets. So the way this works is if you go into Blueprint, once you install it in your project, it will give you these folders, and all you have to do is select the type of planet you have. So if you want to have a barren planet, you want to have an ice planet, Terran looking planet, so this would be if you want to simulate Earth, and it also has a volcanic planet. So these volcanic planets do function pretty well as moons. So I'm just going to drag it into my scene. And as you can see, it's kind of tiny. You can always rescale. Make sure you have your pet lock over here. And let's do 20. And we have our planet right here that we can just throw in there. In the background, looking pretty menacing because we have some lava over here. And there are several good things about this Planet Creator. Now the reason why I'm going to show it to you over here in the middle of the scene is so you can see actually what's going on, because all the way back there with all this mist, it's pretty hard to tell. Now as you can see over here, we have use directional light, and you can tell it which directional light to use. So I'm going to tell it to use this directional light, and as you see, it instantly changed the shading of our planet. And that's why this asset is so cool and it's so worth the money, because it's one click, especially if you need these planets with some kind of atmosphere around. It's pretty cool, and it's just about setting it up. So you can have the day brightness, you can reduce that, and as you can see, it's changing in real time. You want the night brightness, again, it depends on what you're going for with this kind of map, and when you can change the color multipliers that it's using for both sides. So over here we have different kinds of parameters, like the continent scale, and this will give you like a different kind of planet. And again, this is amazing. It has a ton of parameters. If you want me to go in depth with this asset, just let me know in the comments down below, and I will just review this single asset in a more appropriate setting, kind of like in the space scene kind of deal. But just so you know, if you wanted to get this, I highly recommend it. It does have plenty of things to play with, and you have your atmosphere, and it does have rings. So if you wanted to add rings to your planet, which in this case I didn't add rings because I didn't think it'd go with this sort of scene, but if you wanted to, you can add the ring opacity, put it to 0, and there you go. You have some very cool rings going around your planet, and you can change the radius of it, the outer radius, the hardness of the edges, and all that. So this is an all-around pretty cool asset to have if you're into sci-fi or if you're into making space scenes like I'm doing right now. But for the purpose of this environment, that planet is not as important. I just wanted to have something in the background to look at so it wouldn't be an empty sky. And that's one of the reasons why I added this kind of red dwarf that you see right here, or red sun, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to show you how I did that. So this is just a basic sphere, just like this one. All I did was take out a sphere and scale it real big. Take it all the way to the back, put whatever material you want on it. In this case, you can reuse this material, or if you actually see your planet, then probably you want to use another kind of material. But for the little sun that we have right here, I actually created an emissive material. So let's take a look at how I did that. Again, all you have to do is right click and create material. So once you have that, just double click it, and here's what we have. So if I wanted to start this from scratch, I can delete this, and as you can see, some of these are grayed out. The reason why these are grayed out is because when you have an emissive material, you can turn it into a shading model unlit, because it's not being lit by anything else. It actually lights itself, if that makes any sense. So we only have emissive colors. Now for that, I'm going to add a multiplying node. So I'll hold the letter M and click. I get a multiply node. I'm going to hold the number 3 and click. I get a 3 vector color, and I'm going to hold the number 1, and I get my 1 vector constant. So this is pretty much a number that you can change, and this is going to signify the intensity of our emissive. If you want to change the intensity, you can promote this to a scalar parameter. The term scalar parameter just means that is something that you're going to be able to move in real time, as opposed to having to come to the editor every single time. I'll show you that in a second. But let's hook these up. So this one goes in the B. It can go in the A. It's a multiplication. It doesn't matter where it goes. Then this one goes into emissive color, and this one goes here. Right now nothing's gonna happen because we have a black color. So if we go into our constant and we turn it into something reddish, kind of like around here, I think it's fine. You're gonna see that still nothing happens. The reason is because we are multiplying this by 0. So anything that's multiplied by 0, it's 0. So it's not producing anything. Now, what we're going to do is I'm actually going to take this to 35, which is a kind of high number. But then again, this thing is all the way in the back. Now, from the looks of it, it looks kind of orange. So let me see. I'm actually going to leave it at 35, and we're going to change this. So maybe around here. Okay, that's more like it. So after that, we're going to apply. I'm going to save. After you do that, you probably are not seeing your sun the same way that I'm seeing it right now, and that is because of the post-processing volume. Remember, we added a post-processing volume at the beginning of the series, so we're going to go into it, and we're going to go into the bloom part. So by default, it should be like this. So as you can see, this is probably how you're seeing your sun. It's just a ball that's just there. It doesn't look like an actual sun. So all you have to do is turn this on, and I'm just going to get to the default number, which is 0.675, and I'm just going to raise this a little bit more. And as you can see, it does add a little bit of brightness to our environment. So if it's too bright, you may want to adjust your exposure, but I think around 2 is fine. So I'm just going to leave it at, actually, let's just do 1.5. There you go. Just a little bit of a shine around the sun. It's perfect. And another thing that you may get when you're using this is the lens flare. So I also reduce it. So this is how it looks without the lens flare being dialed down. And I actually don't like the way that looks. So I just turn it down to 0.02. You can turn this to 0 if you want. It's actually not doing much, but I think the lens flare in there, it's not, at least for this specific scene, it's not doing much. So I just turned that off, and that is how you get your planet and your sun. Alright everybody, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, there's the Patreon if you want to help out the channel. Don't forget to leave a like before you leave a comment if you can. And subscribe to Discord, follow me on Twitter and all that. And make sure you don't miss the next episode. We're going to be talking about the mountains in the background. And I'll see you in the next video.